But so topic number 2 is internet forums, good or bad? Because I have a lot of it. A lot of the idea for this came from The Division, but I'm really, really curious. I like the fact that technology is what it is. I like the fact that the internet is what it is. I like the fact that the internet allows people of varying beliefs, walks of life, whatever, to be able to find other people that have their same belief, their same walk of life, whatever, across vast distances. I love the fact that the internet has, all of the world's information at a click. But specifically to gaming forums, do you think they tend to breed toxicity? Because I think a lot of gaming forums turn into echo chambers, right? Where if somebody poses a negative idea or has a negative opinion, because the internet and social media have kind of taught us to fight for popularity in these spaces, I think it incentivizes people to agree with the original concept holder, right? Basically Twitter. What's up, Cosby? How you doing? Sort of, but not really just Twitter. See, that's the thing. Like, forums started as more like chat forums, more than just Twitter. Like, Twitter, I think, has taken it to another level because Twitter limits the amount of characters that you could have, right? So it's even harder on Twitter to get your point across without pissing somebody off, because you can't use 6,000 characters, right? You can't leave paragraphs. And that's tough for me. It's one of the reasons I hate Twitter, because I talk in paragraphs, I write in paragraphs. I don't write in sentences very much. I mean, obviously I use sentences, but I never can get my point across in one sentence. Even tonight, my girlfriend, when we were making dinner, she was like, "Are you going to eat dinner with me?" And I was like, "Well, I can, or I can go back downstairs because I have some editing to do, so I can eat down there if you want." And she was like, "Well, geez, if you don't want to eat with me." And I'm like, it's not what I said, right? But that's the way that I always think. Gamers are the worst, forums amplify the worst. See, I don't think gamers necessarily are the worst. I think there's a lot of gamers that have great ideas, and gamers are extremely passionate about their ideas. And because gamers are very passionate, I think that passion comes out. And I think if a passionate gamer doesn't know how to properly communicate their criticism without adding a lot of subjectivity or a lot of, how do I say this? Without adding a lot of angst or kind of like insult to anybody that thinks the opposite, then I think that's where it breeds what you're talking about, Ramsey. I think that's where it really starts to snowball into the worst of humanity and the worst of gamers. There's a lot of people who don't deserve to use internet. No, I completely agree with that. I completely agree. And Nabitsi, I'm going to be completely honest. If I didn't stream, I wouldn't be on Twitter. I wouldn't be. The only reason I'm there is for streaming, because Twitch is impossible to grow on in and of itself. Like, you have to use outside social media to try to grow on Twitch. If Twitch had ways to grow on Twitch, I wouldn't be on Twitter. I despise Twitter. I hate it. But trying to grow and trying to do this for a living, I need to get my personality out there as much as possible. So on Twitter, that's what it is. Like, I'll get into arguments because I'm going to state my side and, whatever. But I try to do it in a way, like, I got into it last week with somebody about PvP/PvE rewards. And I said, like, PvP rewards are cool. And, like, we were talking about the Division in particular. I said the DZ needs PvP rewards, but those PvP rewards need to be for PvP specifically and not for PvE. And then he came back with the thing about Destiny, and we got totally sidetracked, and then came back to the same point that, like, dude, I was agreeing with him. PvP needs its own rewards, but PvP rewards, you can't just throw rewards that are exclusive to the Dark Zone, because if those rewards are useful in PvE, then you get a bunch of PvE farmers in the Dark Zone, which pisses off PvPers because those people don't want to be there and they don't want to PvP. So then they run away from the PvPers. PvP now is pissed off because they don't have people PvPing. PvEers are pissed off that they need to go into a PvP area to get a weapon that they're going to go use in a heroic. So that's why I was saying that. Kirk Douglas died? Yeah, somebody said that earlier. Gail, good because people can give their opinion on the good and bad about things. Bad because pure anonymity leads people to shitpost because they can hide behind it. Well, and that's the problem, though, is that you can't take away that anonymity, because as soon as you take away the anonymity, you get people that dox, you get death threats, you get all of that other shit. And that there is no balance. That's the problem. But I completely agree. I mean, I do think it's just like everything else. There needs to be a balance. And that's where moderators rock. I can see where you're coming from on that. Personally, I feel that the forum moderation goes along with... Oh, look at that. Rocket Wolfpack just said the same thing. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's the thing, like, you know, you'll get forum moderators or even Twitch chat, right? There's Twitch chats that are, you know, far more toxic than others, but within the context of that group, it's not toxic, right? It's only toxic to the people that have an opposing viewpoint of that. Yo, Troop Dog, what's up, man? How'd your stream go today? So, you know, if let's say if I have a toxic community from the outside looking in, right? We're always shit talking the developers, or we're always shit talking PvEers, or we're always shit talking PvPers. And then somebody from one of those groups comes in, we're going to appear toxic, but to our own group, insulated, we're not toxic at all, right? And that's where we start to just create echo chambers everywhere, because I honestly believe this all goes back to the point of, like, kind of what I said, like on Twitter, we don't have enough characters to communicate our ideas. But I really think humans have lost the ability to rationally communicate and to see things objectively. I think we are taught from a very young age, especially in the dawn of social media, or in the age of social media, that we have to instantly react. We have to have an instant feeling or gut reaction to whatever it is that we see. And we need to either like it or not like it. And we're not rewarded enough to be like, oh, wait a minute, hold on, let me critically think about this topic, and let me see and weigh it from both sides, because that's exactly what I always do. And that's why a lot of times there's like Glow gets on me all the time for being wishy-washy and not being able to make a decision. Part of that is just because I'm a Gemini, and I always see both sides. But another part of it is the way that my brain has always worked. It's very difficult. Like, I got a 20-sided dice right here. If somebody asks me a question, I can look and I can be like, yep, here's the answer. And I'll be like, well, wait a minute. That might be the answer if I do this, but what if I do this and then that person does this? Well, now there's this. And so it's just so multifaceted. I don't believe in black and white for most situations. This no date thing is not a good look. And also them saying, oh, speaking specifically about the division. Yeah, no, Cosby, I'm there. I think the no date thing, we just talked about it for a half an hour. I talked about it ad nauseum on stream earlier today. The no date thing's doing way more harm than good. Way more harm than good. I completely agree with you. I am Janko's bot. Hey there. What's up, Troop? Did you get your, no problem, man. Did you get your raid done earlier today? Feelings play a big role in people's judgment, and logic has been thrown. Well, that's the whole thing. Like, I think we can't respectfully disagree. That's the thing. And that's where, like, Gail will be the first. I'm so glad you're here for this topic, Gail. Gail will be the first one to agree with this, and Johnny Boom could agree to this also. We don't always see eye to eye. And as a matter of fact, Gail and I have very, very polar opposite beliefs in a lot of things, and we've talked about them, but we're still friends. Like, we've been able to just get to a point that, oh, okay, I see why you believe that. I believe something opposite, but that doesn't mean that I think you are a shitbag because you believe opposite or differently from me. And I just wish more people could do that, because taking it back to the Division 2, it doesn't mean that, you know, oh, the PvPers are assholes or the PvEers are fucking pussies or anything like that. It's just, we enjoy the same thing but from different angles, and I think we all need to be able to understand that in gaming, and that's where forums don't work. And that's where, getting back to the point about moderation, that's where forum moderators, I honestly think forum moderators should be like a debate moderator, right? And instead of just keeping somebody from being shitty or toxic or insulting, I think a forum moderator should be, honestly, if I ever ran forums, this is what it would be. If this person was like, PvE sucks, then the moderator would come in and be like, well, why? And it would be the moderator would be there to try to generate logical discussion from this absolute statement as a way to literally try to moderate the discussion and try to add different viewpoints without being toxic or shitty or insulting is the word I'm looking for. Janko. Kind of like Banco, but with a J. Getting some decent times in now without pushing. Nice, dude. That's super badass. You play on PC Troop. So that's the weird thing, because and this kind of gets into another aspect of this in why I wanted to pose this question is, or Stanko works too. Is, have you ever been playing a game and you really enjoy the hell out of it? You absolutely love it. And you go to a forum someplace because you're looking for a build idea, you're looking for this, or you're looking for that, or you just want answers, right? Maybe you've got an ability that you don't understand and you go, and then all of a sudden you see somebody complaining about this game or this ability or this character class or this aspect of the game. And it's something you've never noticed before, right? Up till that point, you've been super happy with the game. You love the game. You poured tons and tons of hours into it. And then you're on that forum and boom, all of a sudden that idea gets introduced into your head. And the next time you go back into the game and you go to use that ability or that item, or if you're a PvPer, that item or that ability gets used against you. And all of a sudden now it starts to build a little bit more negativity about the game. And then slowly but surely you're like, oh man, I didn't even notice that. And then you open that box of shit. And then you start to see all of these other things that you've never noticed about the game. And before you know it, the game is so much more negative. Have you guys had that experience? Yo, what's up, Stick? How are you doing tonight? What about this? Reddit is a huge source of info and a great place for division info, but it's very clearly a safe place for PvE discussion. If you have anything positive to say about PvP, it gets downvoted for no reason. And it's a huge echo chamber for anti-PvP sentiment. And this is a problem because devs take it seriously. Well, here's the thing. I honestly think that the Division 2 Reddit should be split up into two different parts, which I think would both help that, but I also think that's antithetical to what the Division is supposed to be. The Division is supposed to be, in my opinion, a PvE game with PvP as like end game activity for everybody if they want to take part into it, right? I don't think it was ever meant to be 50-50, PvE and PvP. But that said, PvP needs love, and PvP needs a passionate community, and it needs. The Division specifically, I think the entire community, PvP and PvE, just need to stop throwing around insults towards the other side. And that's why I said divide the Division. I've been the biggest thing from the beginning to say that, like, we need to stop thinking about Division as just PvP or just PvE. But I do think that, especially on Reddit and like the situation that you're talking about, Prick, it needs a PvP specific area where people can voice their issues with PvP and not be shit on, or people can voice their opinions about PvE and not just be supported and or shit on by the PvPers, or just supported by the moderators that are there. But again, that all comes back to moderation. Because that's honestly, like, PvP right now, I'm not even a PvPer, and I think that PvP is clearly the biggest part of the game, problem with the game, with the exception of, and I don't mean problem like PvP sucks, I mean that there's a lot of issues with PvP and it needs to be fixed for the Division 2 to be healthy. You have to go to sleep. Dude, Troop, have a great one, man. I really appreciate you stopping in tonight, man. But that's the thing, when you get into that forum, and let's say you're a big PvPer, right? That goes exactly to what I'm talking about. Let's say you are a PvPer and you go to Reddit to either voice your opinion or to try to find people that agree with you or disagree, right? If you're that type that actively seeks out opposing viewpoints. I do all the time as a way to like check my own as a way to check my own biases and my own beliefs. Like, I believe that the only way that I can truly grow is through conflict. And that means I need conflict of my own ideas, right? I need to hear the opposite viewpoint if to reinforce my own opinion or to challenge my opinion and then see if my opinion holds up to criticism. Like, that's just the way I am. Would that be the same as seeing a critic's review disagree about a movie you like? I think it would be. I think it would be. It's, to me, it's the same as, like, if I go to see, and I never like read critic reviews before I see a movie, because I don't want it to taint my idea of what I'm going to go see or what I'm going to watch. But I like to read them afterwards to see, wait, maybe this person picked up. I did it with not Return of the Sith, with Rise of Skywalker a lot, because I loved Rise of Skywalker. And the more that I saw people were shitting on it, I was like, wait, what did people not like about it? And so I needed to go and actually look at these reviews and read them to see, oh yeah, okay, I can see why that person didn't like that and why that would ruin the movie for him. It didn't do that for me. I didn't see it that way, but I can see how they saw it that way. And I do think that we need more of that. Prick Flare, that happens mainly because most MMO type gamers are heavy PvE players from casual to hardcore. PvP for most games that have both sides included at the same time is a smaller, more vocal group about issues. A game should stop trying to combine both types. This helps prevent the issues of guns get nerfed in PvP. No, I totally agree. I mean, I've said it forever that PvP in Division 2 should be separated. The Dark Zone should be a PvP area that only gives PvP items that are only good in PvP, that give you an advantage in PvP against other players. I've said it forever. I said it from the beginning of Division 1. You spotted an albino Dalmatian? It was the least you could do for him? Mark, I love you, man. I love you. The point I'm discussing here, in this case, the echo chamber, that the Division Reddit is a bad thing for the game specifically. See, I think in that instance, I do think that because it has turned into an echo chamber, it is bad. But again, I think that's where moderation needs to come in. Moderation needs to come in and you have to allow a certain amount of dissenting opinion, because that's my biggest issue right now. If we take it to politics, that's my biggest issue with politics, left or right. Any type, especially on the left, but any dissenting or disagreeing opinion, or even if it doesn't even have to be an opposing opinion, if you just ask a question because you don't understand something, or if you just raise a question to try to critically, come up with the truth for yourself, right? Or a truer understanding of something, you are instantly labeled as a hater or this or that or whatever. And that's my biggest issue with politics today. But yeah, no, you're right. The Reddit is a perfect prime example of that. Even though it is all PvE, if you just show up with a PvP question or a PvP issue, it gets shit on and removed. But that's a moderator issue. So you're right. I do think in that instance, and I will also say that, yeah, my own personal opinion of the Reddit is, I think I don't want to see the Division Reddit turned into just self-promotion for content creators, because there's too many content creators in the world to begin with and in this space. But I do think more of it should be allowed. I mean, honestly, that's why I was completely discouraged from ever going there. What I'm saying is that by having both PvE and PvP combined for loot causes those problems. 100%. 100% it does. I completely agree, which is why I think they should be separated. Use the word griefing used interchangeably being used. Wait, what do you mean? Well, yeah, but you're right. It shouldn't be used interchangeably, because I think griefing is a very particular type of killing. But it goes back to the problem with the game in and of itself, in my opinion, is there's PvE rewards in the Dark Zone, for instance. So if you put those in there, then you get players that don't want to PvP, but they're incentivized to go in there for an item that they're going to use in PvE, and that's exactly what Gail's talking about. And then they don't want to PvP, so they go out, they get killed by another player, then they go back and they respawn, then they go back to try to get the same item, and then the same person kills them because that other person that's killing them just wants to play other people. They just want to fight other people. This guy doesn't want to. And that's where it gets turned into this person A, the PvE person, thinks that they're being harassed, thinks that they're being griefed, while this person's just shooting other people because they want PvP. I don't even think it's deliberate killing of the same player. I think it's Yeah, I do think it's more harassment, right? Like if I'm a PvPer and I'm in the dark zone and Gale comes in and I kill him and he clearly tries to run from me. And then I go and I hang out of the checkpoint and just outside the range of the turrets or whatever. And then he comes out, and as soon as he comes out, boom, 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 I cap him again. And then, I see him respawn, so I stay right there. It's the exact same, that is griefing. That is shitty. Exactly. I mean, that's been my whole issue with the Dark Zone, especially in Division 2 and how to solve the Division 2 Dark Zone issue. But that's been my issue with the Division 1 or with the Division since its inception, because that used to be the only place that you could get gear set pieces. So it forced PvE players. That's why in Division 1, PvE players like myself wanted a light side or a light zone that was essentially the dark zone without PvP, because I wanted to be able to go in and grind and try and farm and try to get gear set pieces without having them taken from me by people who are just there to fight other players, because I don't want to fight other players. I don't want to have my shit taken. And if my shit is stolen, I want it stolen by the computer, because it's the computer, as opposed to like another player who's put in hundreds or thousands of hours into a build that's far superior to mine, or a group of 4 people that just fucking annihilate me in 2 seconds and I have no chance at all. Playing with others should be optional. Nabits, for some things I agree, for others I don't, because that raises the issue of like endgame content, right? Like if you get like raid content, for instance, this is a big thing with the Division 2 at launch. When the raid first launched, a lot of people were pissed off that the Eagle Bearer is only in the raid. It's the best gun in the game and it's only in the raid. Well, then fucking raid. Like, get a group of people together, go in there and raid, or accept that you're not going to get it. I did that all the time in Destiny 2, man. I'm forgetting shit because I've done too many drugs in my life, but the fucking whatever, the Luna's Howl or any of the other, PvP weapons in Destiny 2, as soon as they came out, Redrick's broadsword was a gun I wanted. I'm a huge fan of pulse rifles. I wanted that thing so bad. As soon as I saw what you had to do to get it, I was like, I'm never getting that gun. And that's just the way I just accepted it. It is what it is. It's interpreted differently, and often it's because what they've read to be true in the echo chamber. I completely agree. Yeah, I haven't PvP'd, like, Gale, you said that in World of Warcraft. I haven't PvP'd too much in SWTOR, but I love, and I don't know if WoW does the same thing, but I described it last night, how SWTOR does their PvP gearing. And like, if you do a raid, you get like a chit or like a coin or whatever it is that you can go to a vendor, and then you either buy PvP gear or PvE gear. So you can gear up for PvE or PvP doing PvE stuff. But then that gear is only like at its maximum potential in whichever activity you purchased it for. And there's a stat, there's a line thing. I can't remember what it's called, but essentially it's PvE or PvP. And if you wear this in PvP, it's good. You can use it to its full potential. If you use it in PvE, it's not going to be nearly as good. And I think that's what the Division needs. I think that's what the Division needs. I think that's what Destiny needs. PvE is better than PvP. Well, what do you mean? Better as in like more fun or more polished or more thought out and better delivered, brother Shmee. Because I don't think that's a statement that can be said as far as enjoyable activity, because that's a subjective statement. You think some dude's Dodge City holster got yacked once I put it on the rope? Yeah. I mean, I spent 2 hours. It was the first time in forever. I spent 2 hours in the dark zone a couple weeks ago for the first time. I had a fucking blast. I had an absolute blast. Hooray for drugs, dude. LSD is the best. I don't mind PvP, but PvE is far superior. As far as like how you enjoy the game, I completely agree. Diamondback is better than Eagle Bearer. It might be. I have no idea. I got my Diamondback. I don't think I've ever even fired my Diamondback. The fear I believe PvE players have is the group versus one. I could see that. Making the DZ a solo DZ would make more people go in. Well, they do have that now with matchmaking. I think the matchmaking sets you more up with solo players. If the current modes were changed to the way you described, the whole game wouldn't be the Division anymore. The way things are needs to stay that way. I mean, the problem is the way things are is why the game is fucked right now, truly. Because you've got PvP players that aren't happy because they don't have players to play with. And, I mean, there's other reasons, too, because the gameplay itself is poor, and the builds are poor, and the mechanics are poor. But even if all of that was fixed, the DZ will be filled, and especially with the smaller DZs and the smaller numbered players in the DZ, this wasn't as big of a deal in Division 1 because you had a much larger DZ and more people, right? So, like, in the smaller DZs, if you're in a DZ and you want PvP and you're in a group of 4, you only have 2 other groups of 4 that are potential enemies for you to play with. And if both of those are PvE farming groups, they're just going to run from you. And now you don't have PvP. I'm not a fan of the argument that PvE players believe gear is locked behind PvP. It's ridiculous to PvP players that literally have to PvP. Well, that's my whole thing. That's why I say, Prick, that shouldn't be the case. PvP people, in my opinion, should be able to log in. Maybe they have to play through the story because it is the game. But after that point, you should be able to gear 100% PvPing. 100%. I don't think you should ever have to leave the Dark Zone or the PvP game mode in the game in order to gear up. The only problem where that comes in is balance, right? Because if, and this is what I was told by a developer when I said, because I had suggested what I did about like the SWTOR type of gearing system, and what I was told is that they can't do that because people will figure out a way around basically how to go in, get against their buddy, and just kill their buddy constantly for XP to get the PvP gear, and then they will just dominate anybody else that comes in. Hey, Gale, that's not going to happen, sadly. It's subjective. I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. It is subjective. And I don't have and my only issue with the way that you stated it is saying definitively PvE is better. Like, you can say, I like PvE more. PvE is my favorite. I love PvE way more than I like PvP. But I don't think anybody can say, or I don't think it's a valid statement to say PvE or PvP is better than PvP without saying to me, because that is you're making an I statement, but you're stating it as an empirical truth, and that's just communication brain. Some people don't like matchmaking. I understand, but you have to for certain activities. If you want pinnacle activities, it has to have a level of difficulty that is tougher than one person can do in some things. That's the answer. Somebody what I gave, Prick, or what Gail said. The reason DZs are like they are now specifically to cater to the PvE people that requested this, and I'm going to completely say I think it was bullshit that they did it. I said it when they first said that they were going to put in specific named items into the DZ. I said that was a fucking mistake. Because unless those named items were only useful in PvP. Because it just brings in more PvE players into the Dark Zone, which fucks up the experience for everybody. I completely agree. That's what they should do. One of the biggest issues with the game are the very strong opinions people have when specifically discussing things they don't do. And Prick, that's the one thing that I've always tried to say is that when it comes to PvP, I'll give my opinions. But I give my opinions as a PvE focused player, and I will readily admit I don't know what the fuck the problem is. I really don't. This is the problem from my perspective, but it might not be the answer, right? My suggestions may not be valid, and I'm totally down to listen and understand and get and agree with whoever does do that. If they say nope, you're full of shit, that's not the right idea, this is what needs to be fixed, I'm like, cool, dude. That's it then. Because again, getting back to turning it all back to the forums question that we first had, I don't live in an echo chamber. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. So like, I am fully aware Cosby and I have gotten into it before on Twitter and whatnot. I'm fully aware that let's say tomorrow I were to get hired by Massive to go work as a developer for them, or if I was ever got accepted to an ETF or anything else. And for the record, I did not apply to this last ETF for 2 reasons. 1, I don't have a passport, so I couldn't. 2, I think the game needed to have PvP focused on, and I'm not a PvP player, so I shouldn't be there. The only advice I could give them would be how to get a player like me into PvP or to give PvP a try, and that's not what the game needs. So those were the 2 reasons I did not apply for the ETF. Because I don't think I would have had anything valuable to add to the PvP discussion. That's what we want as PvP players, new players in the Dark Zone. But you don't want new PvE players because then that takes away PvP, right? Like, I know that you want more players in there, but don't you want more players that want PvP? That's not what you're getting with that, Cosby. This circles back in the discussion about the forums. The devs are listening to feedback, but so much of the feedback they're getting is from the majority. I completely agree. And that's why I think in that case, and I don't know if like the official forums for PvP would be a better place, because they've always said that the 2 places that they take ideas from the most are the forums and Reddit. And then, Twitter is like in 3rd place. So maybe the official PvP forums are a better place to focus those ideas. It's how the Division has always been. But see, Cosby, it's different now, though, because the Division 2 is not what the Division 1 was at launch. And the Division 1 Dark Zone was what it was at launch because that was the only place to go get the gear sets. And that was a big problem with the game at that time for PvE players. Now, the Division 2 has this entire light side outside of the Dark Zone that has everything. It is exactly what all of the PvE players wanted in the light zone during Division 1. We have no reason to go into the Dark Zone. There's no reason that a PvE player should have to go into the Dark Zone. We don't need to, other than to get items that are special to there that I can use outside of there. And that's why I say if you put items in the Dark Zone that are only useful either in the Dark Zone or against other players, you get more people in the Dark Zone that want PvP, and then that helps the experience for everybody. There are a lot of PvE players. I mean, I will admit, that's me. That's me. I went into the Dark Zone a couple weeks ago. I had a blast for 2 hours. And at episode 3, I'll probably start doing it more. I got to admit, that's true. That's true. If you want to keep people playing the game, keep it as free as possible to do what you... And I agree with that, too. Are only there for blood. It's what makes grass in the DZ grow. But the problem is, Cosby, and I get that, and all you want is PvP, but if all you get is PvP at the expense of a PvE player's desire to get an item that's locked in there that they just want to use somewhere else, the problem with that is if that happens too much, that person's just going to stop playing overall. They're going to get pissed off, they're going to stop playing, and that's one less person that's going to buy a DLC, it's one less person that's going to buy the next game, and while you think that's cool because they're just a casual anyway, there are far more people like that than there are like you, and that means Division 3 doesn't come out. That means the next DLC is going to be absolute shit because Massive doesn't have enough money to funnel into it to make good content. That's the problem. That's that line that the developers have to walk. I know you're completely fine with that, but then you don't get another Division. So it'd be you and, the vast minority of players playing together in a dead game. Like, that's it. Yeah, and Benz, I agree with that. A lot of people love the Division 2 left due to the constant gear changes. I completely agree with that. But I also see why the developers did it. The developers needed to hopefully find a way to fix what was wrong with their game. And so they're still trying. You're fine with that also? I'm not. I'm not fine with that. I want the Division 3 or whatever iteration we get next to be the definitive division that I've always wanted. That's what I want. I want them to finally find a balance of PvE, PvP, the right way to do it, use this as the experiment grounds, and then Division 3 to be that game. So everybody's happy. I don't think it'll ever happen. But the problem is, Cosby, is that means then that you would rather have you and the small minority of super hardcore PvPers dictating whether or not there's another division for everybody, or just get this one dead game that like you and a few people enjoy and that's it, and then everybody else is just shit out of luck. Like that's I'm sorry, that's not right. Aren't PvE players always wanting to play harder content? Yeah, they are. But they don't want to fight other people. I don't. I want harder content, but I don't want, and I said it earlier today. It was either today or yesterday when I was playing UFC. I think it was when I was playing UFC because the computer completely cheesed me. I said, I'm totally fine getting cheesed by the computer because it's a computer and it is what it is. It's just, man, I don't mind losing to, like, even in 1.3 Division 1, right? As bullshit as the balancing was at that time, I enjoyed more getting my dick kicked in by complete bullshit bullet sponge enemies than I ever did going into the DZ and getting killed by a player. Like, because I just don't enjoy PvE or PvP. I know that I'm not skilled at it. I'm not. And so because of that, I know that against the computer, I can figure out how to approach this situation, how to gear myself up better or whatever to beat this engagement. I can't do that in PvP. I'm just not good. I'm not good enough. And I know that. And so because I know that, I don't want to keep doing it. I don't want to keep getting smoked by either the same people or by a bunch of different people that are just fucking better than me. I've got better things to do with my time. But, and Gail, that's why I made the video I did about the Pentagon, in my opinion, should have been a giant fucking replayable area with a bunch of missions. Like, it should have been Underground 2.0. It really should have been. I will never stop saying that.